Hi readers, Chris here. Today I'm going to be doing a book unhaul. It is the end of summer, it's the end of a season, so I figured, hey, it's a good time for an unhaul. In case you're new here, my name is Chris. I do book reviews and all sorts of bookish stuff with my little furry friends who may or may not make an appearance in this video. But I'm going to start off unhauling a book that I have duplicates of, and that is going to be the first book in the series of unfortunate events, The Bad Beginning. I love this series. And so over the years during my bargain book hunting adventures, I've gotten extra copies of this book. And already someone wants to say hello. Already Jack is upset that I am getting rid of a book. So Jack, I'm sorry. We're going to have to say goodbye to The Bad Beginning. So because I have 2 copies of this book, I already have a hardcover. This book is going to be donated. Next up, I have a book box book, which always makes me sad, and that's going to be As Far As You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper. I read this book last year, and it's a cute book. I really enjoyed it. It's about a young boy. He goes off to England for the summer. He's gay. He's trying to figure out where he belongs. He feels like he doesn't fit in at home. And then he goes to London and he meets all these other people that are just like him, that are into music like him. It's a very cute coming of age, found family type story. But the thing is I'm just never going to read this book again. I'm just never going to read it again. It's cute. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I feel like there is someone out there who needs this book way more than I do, so therefore this book is going to be donated. Next up, I have a book that I know other people have enjoyed, but not me, and that is going to be Dorothy A Must Die by Danielle Page. Read this book years ago, so did some other people in my family, and none of us liked it. None of us liked this book. It does have some interesting concepts and some good things going for it. This is a retelling of The Wizard of Oz. In this story, there is another young girl who travels to the land of Oz through a twister, just like Dorothy did. But when she gets there, she finds out that Dorothy has actually taken over Oz, and she's basically a dictator now, and the witches are trying to fight back. So it's like a flip-flop on the whole Wizard of Oz story, and it could have been a really interesting concept, and it does have some interesting parts, but overall, the story just fell flat, the characters fell flat, and it wasn't what I wanted from this book. Again, this is a whole series. I'm never going to reread it. I'm never going to read the rest of the series, so there's no reason for me to hang on to this book. Therefore, I'm going to be getting rid of it. Next up, I have a book that I read earlier this year, which hurts me because I don't think I've ever unhauled a book quite this quickly, but I also don't really do a lot of unhauls, so maybe that's not saying much. But I am unhauling Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. I've never read any Mark Lawrence or any of his books before until earlier this year when I did a buddy read with David over at David's Book Reviews. I think David enjoyed this book slightly more than me. He did say he was going to continue with the series. I'm not going to continue with the series. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to revisit this book ever. So again, there's no reason for me to hang on to it. It is a fantasy, and it is a grimdark fantasy, which I really wanted to read more of this year. But unfortunately, I don't know. It's supposed to be about a young boy. He's only 15, but he's super violent, and he didn't seem like a 15-year-old boy to me at all. He seemed like a grown man. So again, this could have been a really interesting story with a really interesting concept. Didn't work for me. I didn't like it, so I'm going to be getting rid of this book. Next up, I have a book that I know I'm going to be judged for, and that is going to be American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I know that Neil Gaiman is very popular. I know. And he has written a lot of good stuff. He has. I don't think American Gods was one of them. I just don't. His stuff is hit or miss for me. It is hit or miss for me. There are some parts of this book that I really, really like. There are some parts of this book where I'm like, WTF, I don't understand what's going on, and I don't know why we're spending so much time on this kind of side plot instead of the main storyline. So, unfortunately, I didn't quite care for this book, didn't quite care for the adaptation. I thought like the TV show might be a little better. Now, I didn't watch the whole thing. I only watched a few episodes and decided I didn't care for it. Didn't want to waste my time. I know a lot of people like this book. I know a lot of people do. It just wasn't for me. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But I don't want to reread it. I don't want to reread it. So, Neil Gaiman, American Gods, you're getting donated. Next up, I have a book that probably is going to seem a little random in this collection because I mostly read fantasy, but I also have like rando books that I read every once in a while, and this was one of them, and that is going to be What Alice Forgot by Lane Moriarty. Moriarty? I don't know. She's the same author that wrote Little Big Lies, if you've ever heard of that one, Big Show, etc., etc., etc. Now, this book came out years ago, late 2000s, maybe early 2010s, and I was on the Little Big Lies hype train at the time, so I read that. I read this one, and I don't know why I hung on to this book so long, other than, like I said, I've never really unhauled books before until this year, and this was very far back on my bookshelf, so I honestly forgot that I had it. But this book is really interesting. It's about a woman who wakes up and, like, she basically has amnesia. So 10 years of her life have gone by. She has this whole life that she can't remember. Like, it's a pretty good book. It's interesting. It has some good parts. But again, this is not the type of book that I'm ever going to revisit. This is another book where when I read it, I liked it. I thought it was okay. Again, because I like certain types of book, this wasn't like the best book I've ever read, but it's interesting enough that I would recommend it if you haven't read it, especially if you liked Little Big Lies. But for me personally, I'm never going to revisit it. At one point in time, it was going to be like a movie or a show. I don't think that ever happened, or if it did, it wasn't that big because I don't remember hearing about it. So long story short, this book is going to be donated. Next up, I have a whole series that I'm kind of unhauling, and that is going to be The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I have 3 of these books. I have this one. I have The Girl Who Played with Fire. I have The Girl in the Spider's Web. And then I'm pretty sure I have another one. Please hold. Yes, right here. The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. So there's 4 of these books. I have read all of these books. I've read them all. And I think a lot of these books are really, really, really good. Especially, I think I really liked The Girl Who Played with Fire and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, it's a little slow for me. This one is a little slow for me, but I feel like this series gets better as you go along. This is definitely a series that I would recommend checking out if you haven't already. If you've read The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and you were like, I would say keep going because I feel like the later books are a lot better. So basically the premise of this series is there's a young girl, her name is Lisbeth Salander. She is like this quirky, weird, like very antisocial. She has a lot of problems, young girl, but she's really good at what she does. She's really good at like hacking stuff. She's basically like really good at being a spy. She's good at fighting and killing people and like doing all this crazy stuff. So in the first book, she kind of helps solve this murder mystery, but then from there, things just get really crazy for her, This is a really good series. It's really good. And I know there's a few more books that have come out. The original author, I should say, this Stieg Larsson, he did pass away. And then this other person, David Lagerkrantz continued his work. I know there's another one in this series that I have not read yet, and if I ever see it while I'm bargain book hunting, I'll probably pick it up and read it at some point. But I don't think I'm ever going to reread these. These books are a little chunky. I just don't think I have the time right now. So all 4 of these books are getting donated. Next up, I have another book that I read earlier this year, and that's going to be The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. This is the second Kristen Hanna book that I read. Definitely will not be the last, because Kristen Hanna is an amazing author. She's just an amazing author. She has the ability to take these like really dark and depressing stories and make it so like you can't stop reading them. This story is about a family that moves out to the Alaskan wilderness, like back in the 70s. The father of this family is an ex-soldier. He's suffering from PTSD, so he's very abusive to the mother. And this is like a story of survival. This young girl who's surviving both like the horrors of her own home plus the horrors of the wilderness, and like which is worse. This story is super depressing. It's really depressing. Like, you have to be in the right frame of mind to read this book. But it's really good. It's really good. It's like watching a car accident. Like, you know it's going to happen, but you can't stop. It is an amazing book. It's really good. I don't think I'm ever going to reread it because I don't ever want to be that depressed again. So The Great Alone, I'm going to donate. Next up, another book that I read earlier this year that I'm happy I'm getting rid of, and that's going to be Anthem by Noah Hawley. I did a whole rant on this book in the beginning of the year, but this book is basically like it claims to be a modern day fairy tale. There is this pandemic that's happened where teenagers and young children are seemingly killing themselves for no reason. And while this is happening, there is this like evil, we'll call him a tech mogul that kidnaps a young girl. And then there's this group of kids that come together that try to save her. If it sounds like this book is all over the place, it is. This book is all over the place. This book is political. It is a political book. It pretends not to be political, but it so clearly is. And this book stops, the narrative stops halfway through this book, and the author writes to tell you what the book is about. The author stops the book to tell you, the reader, what the book is about, because clearly you're not smart enough to figure it out on your own, and he has to explain it to you. Ugh. Yeah. Yikes. Ugh. I don't even want to donate this book because I don't want anyone to suffer through this. So maybe Anthem, you might be going in the garbage. Next up, I have Water for Elephants by Sarah Gruen. Like a lot of people, I fell in love with this book right around the time that the movie came out. I actually saw the movie first, and then because I liked the movie so much, I wanted to read the book. And of course, as we all know, books are always better. This is a really sweet story about a young boy who's poor. He's got like nothing left to live for. He ends up joining up with the circus. He ends up taking care of the elephants there, falling in love with the ringmaster's girl. It's like a romance, but it's also a drama. Like, there's a lot of good stuff going in here. It's a great story. But again, I read it years ago. I don't see myself revisiting, and it's not a book I hear people talk about a lot when they talk about like favorite stories, and I can see why. Like, I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't put it like on top of any of my all-time top 10 lists. So unfortunately, Water for Elephants, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to say goodbye to you. Next up, and this one hurts me a little bit, but I'm gonna have to say goodbye to The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. Erin Morgenstern. I loved The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Love, love, love that book. And when I started reading The Starless Sea, I also loved this book as well, because it's like a puzzle, and you're getting the pieces of the puzzle and you're trying to put it together. But this book, I hated the ending. Like, the ending just ruined it for me. It was like you built the whole puzzle, but then you left out like the final piece. I did not like it. I did not like the ending. It kind of ruined the whole experience for me. I'm never going to reread this book. I don't want to. don't want to. I know a lot of people love this book. I know a lot of people that didn't like this book. So I kind of fall in the middle, but I definitely am not going to revisit it. So The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern, you're going to get donated. That is all for today's book unhaul. Jack says he can't take any more books being gone. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to my channel for more bookish stuff and more furry friends coming soon. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching.